welcome to LightBox Animation 2023. I'm one of your hosts, Angela M. Ensminger.
And I'm your co-host here, Angela M. Sanchez.
And both M's. Mine stands for Michelle. What does yours stand for, Angela?
Marie.
Yay! Say with pride.
No shade if your name is Marie or you have a Marie in your name. It's just so common.
No, I love the name Michelle. So yeah. So we're here to talk about artist hacks for writing for animation. So we will get started here. So first, Angela, why don't you introduce yourself?
For sure. Hey, I'm the nerd there on the screen and also here in person. Hi, I'm Angela M. Sanchez. A couple quick things you should know about me is that one, I am a career changer. So I did not start out in animation. My background is in higher ed and philanthropy. It is totally a-okay to do other stuff outside of animation or make transitions from one industry into another. Feel free to ask me about that as well. I'm also a cartoonist. I love to draw like every red-blooded child. I love drawing at a young age, and my dad said, doctor, teacher, lawyer, engineer, please don't become an artist. So writing was a thing encouraged by my family because I can go into law or education. Hey, I picked education. That's cool, too. But I got my teeth cut in kids' literature. So I have illustrated and written children's picture books. And before I started writing for animation, I was taking storyboarding classes. And doing storyboarding work is what made me overall a better animation writer. And then finally, I am also currently writing for animation. Woohoo! So was previously staffed on. Let's go to the next one. Yeah. Was freelancing on Apple TV Stillwater and also on Gecko's Garage. It's by Moonbug UK. We have some webisodes, and then also Rebel and Crew, the spinoff of Paw Patrol. Most recently, I was a staff writer on Disney TVA's upcoming show Primos, will be out in 2024.
Woo! All right, so I am Angela M. Ensminger, and like Angela before us, I'm also a career changer. So I worked in the publishing industry for about 6 or 7 years. I used to live in New York. I worked for a banking magazine. It is as exciting as it sounds. And I went, I have to get out of here as quickly as possible. And so I had a stint doing a couple other things, went back to school, and I have since worked in production, storyboards, and design for a variety of shows. I've also worked in comics, and I'm also currently writing for animation. So some of the current things I'm working on are My Adventures with Superman. Yeah! Santiago of the Seas, Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Pups, Hex Vet and Magic Pets, which will be out, I believe, in like 2025, Polly Pocket, and I'm currently working on a show at Lego that will also be out in 2025 because animation takes a long time.
Yes.
So I've also done boards. I worked on a show called The Hospital that'll be on Amazon either next year or 2025 as well. I was also a board artist on Santiago, and I worked in production and as a storyboard revisionist and did comics for The Loud House. So now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of this part one, making stories. So would you like to have the clicker for this part?
Gracias. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Okay, do I point it at the computer?
Yeah, so you just point right at it.
Because I'm inclined to point at the screen because I was a 90s kid and I point and slap TVs all the time. So, okay. So again, if you are an artist looking to write for animation, or if you are a writer looking to make your scripts more artist-friendly, this panel is for you. So some people think that story is kind of like this 3-act structure that you typically see in the hero's journey or Save the Cat. You know, you got your inciting instinct, your rising action, oh no, crisis, and then you get into your climax, and then, you know, everything worked out hunky-dory, and then we wrap the story. But that's like pointing at a laptop. There we go. Well, that's like pointing at a skyscraper and saying, that's a business. Well, it's a building. It can house a business. It can hold multiple businesses. But on its own, it's not a business. And so some people think that story is, ooh, interesting worlds, como Avatar, also complex plots, or deep and broody, moody characters, or relationships that change. In reality, it's actually one of these. It's relationships that change. You want to see how characters connect with each other. And that's the thing that we can see grow and develop and will keep us coming back to a story time and again. Everything around that, that's icing on the cake and makes it compelling. So, every protagonist has a key relationship. For these 4 characters, you can already think of what some of their key relationships or their key people in their lives that they bounce off of. For Ash, it's Pikachu, story about friendship. For Harley, it's Ivy and how they're both like bad bitches and friends, but also grow into something more. And then for Vi, it's Jinx, and they're very complicated sorority relationship. And for Aang, it's Zuko, and it goes from like rivals and antagonists in an antagonistic relationship to something that becomes like friends and partnership and, you know, just really cool awesomeness of Avatar. So all of these are the relationships, though, that we watch develop and grow over the course of a story. So what affects relationships?
I'll tell you what does.
1, 2, 3.
Goals!
Yeah, we practice this a lot.
Yes, we did.
So, and not just relationship goals. So no matter who or what your protagonist, they all need a goal. Angela, what are some of the like goals for these protags here?
So we have Ash Ketchum, who just wants to be, you know, the best that ever was. We have SpongeBob, who he wants to be a great employee and just flip Krabby Patties and hang out with Patrick, and also just love Gary because he's his all-time favorite pet. We also have Walter White, and he has an interesting story.
He doesn't want to. It's not making math, but that is a means to an end.
Yes, it is.
And then you also got Mando the Mandalorian. He's got Yodito. Yes, must return the most precious cargo. And then Vi is also trying to heal her relationship, sort of, but, you know, it's a drama. Things get messed up. So what's in a goal? Well, okay, so you might have heard of this little anime called Naruto. We tried to pick something that most people have heard of. Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
Maybe you've seen it.
For Naruto, this is a very good example of how in animation a goal is externalized. So Naruto wants to become the ninja president, Hokage. I'm a weeaboo. So now, what does Hokage look like? Well, even if you don't recognize that word, we know they got a ninja Mount Rushmore in this world. So that's a pretty important position. And then secondly, on top of that, okay, so Naruto, his goal, though, is undergirded by a want. It's undergirded by a desire. And so the specific want here is to be respected. And how do you get respect? You get respect by becoming Hokage, darn, getting your face on the ninja Mount Rushmore over there. So, but what undergirds a want? So we know what he wants. But underneath that want is a need. And so that need for a character is something that's deep and psychological. It underpins a lot of their decisions around the want. Yeah, I'll slow it down a notch. So underpinning a want is a need. A need is a deep psychological thing that drives the character's want. They don't always say the need out loud. So the need for Naruto specifically is that he was exiled from, or excluded, we should say rather, ostracized from his village growing up. So his need is one of acceptance and a sense of belonging. That then underpins the want for respect and acceptance and high esteem and regard within his community. And that then is the goal for Hokage, which is becoming the president, right? So, running opposite and counter to this then is the shadow to the goal. This is also known as your heart of darkness. So what's a fate worse than death for your character? In animation, fate worse than death is actually very important because one, if they die, the story ends, unless you're Goku. And then two, your characters, especially in 6 to 11 animation, aren't allowed to die. But the heart of darkness is something that will undo the character's work toward their goal. And so for Naruto specifically, it is that he harbors the soul of the fox demon inside of his little tiny body, right? And so if Kyuubi, if the fox demon gets out, we know that that will lead to the utter destruction of his village. So that is absolutely the wrong way to go. That is worse than being ostracized growing up. That makes you exiled. That never gets you toward respect. That does not get you to becoming ninja president, does not lead to becoming Hokage. So these are the things that when you're thinking about character, when you're thinking about relationships and goals, we know that we have the goal, what underpins the goal, the want, what is lying underneath the surface of the want, it's the need, and then finally, your shadow to the goal is the heart of darkness. Okay, bonus note, need and character. So the need also tells us what drives the character when they're not on the quest for any specific goal. So for Naruto, since his need is for acceptance, belonging, attention is how it manifests, it's exhausting. He's always out there running around, pulling some kind of shenanigans any day of the week. Whether or not he's gaming to be Hokage or we're on some kind of quest or adventure, the Chunin exams or whatever, you know that this is what he will be up to. It gives him a life and a whole personality outside of the everyday goal of the show. And this is something that you want to make sure your characters have so we know what they're up to. Okay.
There we go.
Clicker.
All right. So what isn't a goal? So the goal tells us the plot. It literally has us going from A to B to C, all the way to Z, figuring out what this show is about. It also has obstacles and conflict. And we will get into that a little bit later, but You know, in real life, if you don't have obstacles, you don't have conflict, what do you have? A really nice life. With storytelling, it is boring as all get out.
So
Again,
boring.
we're going to go over that. Also, it affects the protagonist's decisions to reach the goal. It shows us who they are. It shows us what they're made of. It shows us their character. It also shows us the protagonist's relationships. You want to see what their character growth is and what the themes are of the show, what it is that you're trying to convey. So, the number one rule, protagonating.
Protagonating. So your character, this is our fancy way of saying agency, very technical term, protagonating. So the protagonist needs to take action to make their goal happen. For instance, so I call this the lamp test. If you can replace your protagonist with a lamp at any point and things will turn out about the same, uninterrupted, your protagonist will lack agency. They can be replaced with a lamp. So, for instance, here's a lamp. And let's give one example here. So, our character's name is Jenny. Jenny has an interview coming up. Jenny needs a new pair of shoes for this interview. Jenny goes outside. A person on the street corner walks up to Jenny, sells her some shoes. Jenny's ready for her interview. Jenny's a lamp. Okay, yeah, it's Jenny.
Yeah.
So, versus, let's try this one out. Jenny has an interview. Jenny needs some new shoes for the interview. Jenny goes to the department store. Department store is either closed or they're out of the shoes that she wants. Jenny walks outside. Jenny sees an old lady crossing the street, and she's got a sweet pair of some Jimmy Choos on. Jenny goes over, pushes over the old lady, takes her shoes, and runs away. Jenny goes to her interview with some nice, good Jimmy Choos. Jenny is a horrible person. But you know what Jenny is not? Jenny is not a lamp. Jenny had to do some stuff to make her goal happen, to get her shoes, to make it to that interview and look nice for it too. So, what your characters will do in service of their goal tells us who they are as a person. Jenny's a dick. But what we have in this case, though, is that Jenny has agency. A great example of one that we can see in recent film includes Mei Lin in Turning Red. So Mei Lin is a big Fort-Town fan, or a townie, and so she wants to go to their upcoming concert. She makes this big presentation to her mom about why I must go to the Fort-Town concert. Her mom says, no, you're not going, kid. And instead, what Mei Lin does is that she uses her Red Panda form to take pictures with kids at school. They pay her money for it. She raises money to get her concert ticket. Mei Lin's going to Fort-Town, and Mei Lin is not a lamp. Way to go, Mei Lin.
She did it.
So now we can get to talking about
Yeah,
this.
so now that you actually have a character, you have a protagonist, they have agency, they're not a lamp. Now you can start thinking about this. Now you can start thinking about your Act 1s, your Act 2s, your Act 3s, all the things that you've learned about from The Hero's Journey, Save the Cat, Dan Harmon's Story Circle, whatever method you want to use. Now we can really start applying this because now you have a better roadmap for where it is that you're going. So that leads us to the actual nitty-gritty of writing a pilot. So for those of you who want to get into television, a big way to do that is to write your original pilots. So here's how to do it. So like we talked about, you want to have your characters. You want to give them agency. So when you're developing characters, a really good way to go about it is to have a sheet of their attributes, who they are as people, their relationships to their families, to their friends. You can give them star signs. You can give them D&D attributes, whatever will help you so that you'll fully know who they are. And just to note, this is not information that necessarily has to be in the script. You don't have to tell them that they're a Virgo or an Aquarius or whatnot, but if it helps you fully figure out who they are, write it down.
And for any one of those details, you should know the specific reason why. So in other words, if your character is an Aquarius, why are they an Aquarius? Are they independent? Are they creative? Do they like people, but more as a concept than, like people? Then I'm an Aquarius. But then, you can say hi to me, don't worry. But then you know why you selected that zodiac sign or that blood type or that character trait or that Myers-Briggs personality designation. So you should know the undergirding reason.
Absolutely. And then this helps me, and because it's LightBox, most of us here are artists. I like to draw my characters. I started off in storyboarding and character design, so actually drawing them helps me figure out who they are. Now, obviously, you don't have to do that. When you're in the writer's room, they're not going to ask you to design the characters, but if it helps you with your ideation process, go ahead and do it. This is just for you. And then also, you want to make sure that you have interesting obstacles and scenarios for your character to solve. So a note on this. a lot of us here want to create our own shows, and that's awesome. But something that Angela and I see a lot when we're talking with mentees is people that say, well, the pilot's okay, but episode 17 is when things really get epic, and we want to convince you very lovingly, very gently, not to do that. Whatever cool ideas you have, put it in the pilot, because you don't know if you'll ever get an episode 17, and you don't want the pilot to be boring, and we're not trying to manifest that you will never get a show, but you want to make sure that you have something in the pilot so that executive producers and development executives and story editors, fellow writers are reading this and going, oh, this is really interesting, and I can see how this would play out in later episodes. So just keep that in mind.
Pilots change, by the way, when shows get picked up. Pilots change all the time.
They will change a lot.
So make it fun.
Yeah. So then here's how to do more of the nitty gritty is you're going to write out the beats of the script. So if you're not sure what that is, it's literally just a bullet point list. It's usually 1 or 2 pages of just all the major things that happen in the script. You can either do that as bullet points, you can write that out on a whiteboard, you can do cards, however you want to do it is fine. Then you'll write an outline, and we highly encourage you to write an outline. We know there's a lot of writers who are like, no, I just want it flowing freely from my mind. When you're working professionally, you have to turn in an outline for money. So you might as well learn how to do it now, and it's usually 5 to 6 pages. So don't worry, you don't have to have some 20-page thing. And so here's how you do your outline. You have your slug lines, so you have your interiors and exteriors. You have your action. You might have a little bit of dialogue, like a few sentences. You don't have to have the whole thing, but just enough to give it flavor so that when you're turning it in, either to friends, managers, your bosses, they have an idea of what this thing is actually going to be. And then something I like to do before I ever write it, and something that Angela does as well, because we're in the same writing group, is we give this stuff to our writing groups, or we send it to our agents, or we send it to friends for feedback before we ever write the script, because a lot of times you have this in your head. You've had it in your head for so long that to you, this makes perfect sense. You give it to someone else and they're like, why does this happen on page 2? And when you finally see it, you realize, oh, I never actually wrote down why that happens. I don't know. It's better to know that now before you start writing it and then having to rewrite a whole bunch of stuff. And I believe you had something you wanted to talk about regarding feedback and who to send things to first.
Oh, yeah, good point. So something to think about, especially if this is your first time writing a script and sharing it around. So I personally have a little 3-tier system that I go through. I go through cheerleaders, coaches, and then judges. So a cheerleader is like a good family friend of mine. She's like an auntie. And so I go, Aunt Deb, will you read this? And she'll go, of course, sweetie. And then when she's done reading, she'll be like, oh my God, this was lovely and so much fun. I love your characters. I love when this happened. I'm like, okay. So, and she just bathes me in love. And that's great. Because the idea is new, the baby is new. Baby doesn't need to be, told like, oh, your baby ugly. We don't need that right now. And then when I look back at baby, I go, oh, baby is ugly. I can go and I can fix my child. And then I send them off to the next person. The coach at this point will say like, okay, you know what? This has legs. Baby got legs. You should fix this, this, and this. So give yourself a cheerleader who can kind of nestle your new script for a little bit and be like, oh, this is nice, look at you, and then when you're ready, move it up to a coach, and then finally I call the last tier like a judge. This might be a more professional person. If you're ready to send it off to a rep like an agent or a manager, go for it. If you feel that you might want a little bit more feedback, find someone who is an industry professional and will be willing to give you that critical eye tour thing, go fine tune, fix.
Yeah, and then finally, now you write your script.
Yeah.
Because now you've gotten all this together. And just so you know, it's not like one and done. You're going to end up rewriting that script. We'll get into that. So, how to write pilots. So this is how it goes for animation specifically. Majority of professional pilots are between 28 to 34 pages. If you're working on a 22-minute episode, that's a half-hour episode with commercials, unless you're streaming, in which case they can be anywhere between 30, 36 minutes, because they're kind of fuzzy on that, for an 11-minute show. So your SpongeBob's, your Loud Houses, your Polly Pockets, that kind of thing. 13 to 16 pages. We highly recommend that you aim on the lower side, because a lot of people don't really want to read. A lot of executives, they're not actually going to read your entire pilot. They're not sitting at home with their coffee super comfortable. They're at home with their kids, with the radio blaring. They're reading this at 11 o'clock at night on a Tuesday. We've got it on good authority from executives we talk to that a lot of them will read the first 5 pages, the last 5 pages, and they'll assume that the middle works. So you want to make sure that the beginning and the end are super strong, but also just aim on the lower side, because once you start working, a lot of stuff is going to end up getting cut, because contrary to popular belief as well, the whole 1 minute per 1 page thing.
Not always a thing.
No, especially in an action adventure show, 3 paragraphs might end up being 2 minutes, depending on what's going on. So if you aim on the lower side for your scripts, less likely that things are going to get cut, and less likely for extra work for your artists, which we will get into.
Also, you know when you go to the grocery store and you see like something that's priced $9.99, you're going to buy the $9.99 before you buy the thing that's actually $10 whole, right? And there's only a cent difference. But when someone sees like, oh, 29 pages, that's so tidy, and just, less than 30 pages, even if you only bled on a page 30 by like a couple of lines, keeping it short, keeping it tight shows that you were paying attention.
Absolutely. So then, once you've written it, get notes. Get notes from as many people as you can. You want to revise it. You'll get more notes. Oh, did you have a quick question on something?
The pilot is written in a script format.
Yes, use Final Draft. I know there's a lot of different things out there. The industry standard is Final Draft. If you're a student, you can get a student discount. Also, John August, who is a screenwriter, he's on the WGA negotiating committee. He has a program called Highland 2, which you can get for $50 on, this is not a plug for him, but he's a nice person. You can get it for $50 off of iTunes, and you can export in Final Draft format. Just get Final Draft. We know there's a lot of different programs. Nobody uses the other ones, so just get Final Draft. When you're working professionally, okay? If you're not working professionally yet, use whatever you want. So
We were not paid by Final Draft.
we are not paid by Final Draft. We're not paid by John August. It's just in our collective experience, that is what we've seen.
Can I plug in something real fast on the
Yes.
whole notes revised thing? Last thing I want to mention about the judge thing. When you get it to a judge, and maybe you might get a judge that tells you your baby is ugly, that's the point of going and having cheerleaders and having coaches lined up beforehand. Because at points in our lives and our career, someone does say your baby is ugly, but you've had other people who have been able to talk to you, affirm you, and make your script better. So the one, your baby is ugly, hits here and falls off because you're able to have the pillow of, no, baby's got legs, baby is good, baby, baby's actually kind of cute. So it's okay to have someone when they do come out with that, because you know what? Maybe they were a judge, but baby's not for them, and that's okay too.
Also, on the same note, if you get multiple people who don't know each other telling you the same note, it's worth looking into. You don't have to follow it, but if 3 different people are like, this seems weird, it's probably weird. So it's worth it just try it, see what happens. So then once you revise it and it's tight and you're feeling good about it, that's when you send it off to fellowship competitions. That's when you send it to executive producers, story editors, professional friends, anyone who you think, hey, this is an industry person that can get this in front of eyeballs to help me get a job. So some do's and don'ts. You don't want to over-direct or over-describe. That is the director's and the artist's job. So here's a good example of what you want to do. So interior living room night. Angela's coffee table is cluttered with notebooks, pencils, a scented candle, and way too many books on world folklore. This is nice. What do we know? We know that Angela likes to write. We know that she's a little bit cluttered. We know that she likes world folklore. That will probably come to play in the future. This is fine. Stop here. Here's what you don't do. Interior living room night. Angela's coffee table is cluttered with notebooks, pencils, a scented candle, and way too many books on world folklore. Angela has loved folklore since childhood. One of the books on the table has lots of sticky notes coming out of it. They're in the shape of Shiba dogs, a dog from Japan, and the mascot of the Dogecoin. Angela always wanted to travel to Japan. Stop! No, see, don't do, this is way too much, you guys. And we've seen this, we've done this. This is how we know don't do this, because our story editors looked at this and went, what are you doing? Stop, So it's just too much. And a lot of this, it's stuff that the viewer will never be able to pick up on because it's just a whole block of text. So you just keep it nice and short and simple.
A script is not a novel.
No, it's not.
Different thing.
So here's another thing. So this is from Pixar's Coco. We love this example. So do use metaphors and references to other works as shorthand. So for example, fade from the face of the little girl to present-day Mama Coco, 97, a living raisin, convalescing in a wicker wheelchair. Miguel, voiceover, she's my great-grandmother, Mama Coco. Here's why we love this. They could have just said, here's a lady that's old. That is boring. Instead, they said, living raisin. Instantly, you have an image.
How many wrinkles does a raisin have?
All of them. The raisin has all the wrinkles. So this is why we love this. If you can think of a fun comparison that will stick in the mind of the reader, you want to do things like this. It's short and sweet and to the point. So more do's and don'ts. This is a big one for us. So for a fight scene, don't assume that the storyboard artist can handle everything. Quick show of hands. How many of you do storyboards or you want to do storyboards? Okay.
Yeah.
So you've either seen this or you might see this, and when you see this, yeah. So what you want to do is you want key choreography that advances the plot. Don't do this. Exterior, alleyway, day. Batman chases Joker down a dead-end alley. Batman, no more running now, Joker. They fight.
What?
No, never do this, writers. This is awful. They fight how? They fight where? They fight with what? We don't know.
You will make the artist cry.
Or if you're like me, you're gonna make me mad, and I'm gonna go to you because I'm a direct kind of person. So don't do that. You wanna do stuff like this. Exterior, alleyway, day. Batman chases Joker down a dead-end alley. Batman, no more running now, Joker. Joker, who said I was running? Joker fires a hand cannon. Batman dodges, but Joker's in striking range. They exchange blows. Batman kicks Joker into a dumpster. Joker grins. Perfect. He goes for a stash of laughing gas under the dumpster. This escalates fighting. This answers a lot of things.
This is also a totally made up script, by
yeah,
the
we
way.
made this up. Angela wrote this.
Yeah, thank you.
Which is great. So
Which I'm like, oh my god, My Adventures with Superman.
Yeah,
Writer
and
liked
I
it,
will
and
tell
oh my
you-
god.
this is an example. This is how we wrote our scripts on Superman, like this. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it gives us all the pertinent information in a very short amount of time. For example, what do we know from this? We know they're in an alleyway, but also we know that the artist needs to draw a hand cannon. We know that there's a dumpster. We know that there's laughing gas. And there's also another key thing here, which is if Batman is dodging, that means that the artist knows, I need to draw that alleyway so that it's big enough for two people to move around, but not so big that Batman can just yeet out of there really, really easily, right? And then we also know that it has to be big enough for the amount of stuff that we have there. These are the kind of details that, as someone who's done storyboards and also as someone who's written scripts, this is really helpful kind of stuff. So you want to make sure that your scripts have enough information for the design and the board team, but not so much that it's an impenetrable wall of text and it just makes them cry. So now we're going to get into professional writing. So congratulations.
You got the gig.
Yeah, you got the gig. Go out with friends, celebrate, because now you get to go to work. So this is what it's like when you're a freelance writer as well as when you're on staff. So you've probably heard of a story Bible. A story Bible is between a couple pages to hundreds of pages that talks about what the show is. It describes the show in more detail. It gives you the main characters, the log lines, the premises, etc. Brand new shows, the Bible tends to be very thin. Bigger shows.
I'm on season 12 of Paw Patrol right now as a freelance writer. It is over 100 pages. There's a lot of content. And that's not counting the log lines, by the way. That's a separate document. There's a lot of work in there.
Yeah, because they're in season 12, so they have a lot of stuff. As opposed to Santiago, when I got hired on there, they gave me like 5 pages. They're like, here you go. And that was all that was needed because
That's
one,
nice.
it was season 1, and 2, they knew exactly what they needed, so they didn't have to drop a giant brick in my lap, which was very nice. Thank you, Nikki Lopez. So, also, they will give you premises, outlines, and scripts if they have one. If it's a season 1 show, they don't have this, they're not giving this to you. If you're on anything beyond season 2, they're going to give you material because they're not assuming that you've seen every episode of the show. And also, they're going to give you key episodes to watch. And I know you wanted to say something about that.
Yeah, so you're going to get sent key episodes. Sometimes there will be a link to YouTube or a publicly available site. Other times, they'll have you sign an NDA and they'll send you a link to a secured site and you will be able to watch the episode there. It may or may not be completed animation, it may be rough animation, it may be an animatic. The point is, though, watch the key episode, please. And I know someone out there is thinking like, oh, well, duh, why wouldn't I watch an episode I'm being paid for? Why wouldn't I watch cartoons for work?
You'd be surprised.
You'd be surprised. Life comes up. Things happen. But just make sure you watch the whole episode, because guess what? Soon, boom, your story summit comes up, and then you haven't watched like a 22-minute episode, and suddenly you don't have 22 minutes, and you think you can supplement it with like a short little like clip or trailer on YouTube. Clips and trailers on YouTube are not the same thing. They're supplemental. They're good to know. But a whole episode means you get to hear the characters' voices. You get to see how they interact with each other. You get to see how they play off one another. That is essential to be able to write for these characters.
Absolutely. And so you're also going to get a list of the types of situations, cultural ideas, and characters that they would like to see. Especially if you're working on like a preschool show or a bridge show, a lot of times you'll have an educational consultant or a cultural consultant. And so they'll tell you, hey, you know, in this season, we want to see the characters go to these places, or we want to see them meet these people or do these types of things. So you don't have to just completely make that up out of the air. A lot of times they'll tell you what it is that they're specifically looking for. And actually, before I get to Story Summit, a little bit about this, since we just finished with the WGA strike. You get paid for all of this. So make sure you get paid for all of this.
If you're on a union show.
Yeah, especially if you're on a union show. Even if you're not on a union show,
Ask.
You should ask, because this should be in your contract, or if you have an agent or a manager, you should remind them of this. Make sure you're invoicing for this. In years past, people didn't realize this was in the contract, and studios just wouldn't pay it, because this is a lot of extra work you're doing before you ever write the script, before you ever go into the studio. So make sure they're paying you for the time. If you have any questions on that, I'm going to give a plug for the union. It's the animationguild.org. They have a ton of information. Make sure you're getting paid for your work. It's very important. So then we'll get to Story Summits. So Story Summits this is when you're going to actually meet with the executive producers, AKA the showrunners. You're going to be meeting with the story editors. You're going to meet the other writers, and it's a couple of days to 1 or 2 weeks. And you break the story. You guys figure out what your episodes are going to be about. You figure out your season arcs. And then once that's done, typically in 1 to 3 weeks, depending on how long it takes, your executive producer, the story editor, whoever, they're going to contact you through email or the phone, and then you're going to talk about your episode in more depth. And then you're actually going to write it. So they're going to have you write a beat sheet, which is why we have you do that.
That's why you should do the outline as well.
Yes.
You go through all the exact same motions you did before here, but now you get paid for it.
Yeah, so you're going to write a beat sheet. You'll get notes on that from the executives, and not just your showrunner. You're going to get notes from Nickelodeon, DreamWorks, Disney, whoever, and then whoever their partner's on. So, for example, when I worked on Polly Pocket, I got notes from Shea Fontana, my EP. I also got notes from WildBrain, which is the animation studio. I also got notes from Mattel, because it's a toy company. And so you're going to get notes from multiple people. These aren't necessarily bad notes. Just be aware you're going to get notes from a lot of different people. And if the notes ever contradict, just ask. You know, if someone says, hey, you want me to do this, but then this person's saying this, but now they're two different things, don't suffer in silence or try to like Frankenstein a way for that to work. Bring it up in a meeting. Say, hey, I'm getting different information. Which one should I do? And then let them battle royale that and then come back to you about it. So you write your outline. You're going to get notes in your outline. You're going to write draft 1. You'll get notes. You'll write draft 2. You'll get notes. You see in the pattern. Write draft 3. Sometimes there is no draft 3. Usually there is.
Sometimes it's called a polish as well.
Yeah, sometimes there's a draft 4. Sometimes there's draft 5. At any rate, you're going to get notes every step of the way until you are done. And also, we'll get into staff writing. It's very similar to freelance, except one, which we didn't actually put up here, get paid more. So that's great, because you're full-time. So you get paid a little bit more. But also, as a staff writer, you're involved with every single episode of the show, not just your show. This doesn't mean that you're writing on every episode, but you're in the room. for every episode, not just the one you're writing. And that really, really helps with continuity, if you want to talk about that.
It makes a really big difference in terms of continuity, because when you're a freelance writer, you're being caught up to speed. You're going, okay, well, I hope this sounds like it. Versus when you're a staff writer, you're there, you get to meet all the other writers, whether you're on a Zoom room or a physical writer's room. And so you get used to other people's voices. You can bounce ideas off each other. And then on top of that, you can go, oh, wait. Hey, what if we did a callback to this? What if we, remember when the bubblegum incident, the noodle incident, if you're Calvin and Hobbes fan, you get that joke. What if that happened, that was back in episode 4, what if we made a reference to that in episode 8? So it's healthy for the show. It's also rewarding for your viewers as well, who go, oh my God, they brought that character back, or oh my God, they made a reference to the thing that I watched a while ago. You are already burying in the Easter eggs in there. And so for loyal viewers, it makes them feel like good about being a fan. And for new incoming viewers that go, oh, I want to go back and I want to see that. I want to, be in the know on this. That's how you build a community around animation fandoms as well.
Absolutely. Also, you get to go to more meetings, which is very helpful. I know it's like, meetings, no, but look, if your goal is to be a showrunner, you want to go to as many meetings as you can. You want to know what every single person on the show is doing, and then often if you're at the staff level, story editor level, you get paid more for going to meetings. So go to the meetings. You'll get to meet the design team, you get to meet the storyboard team, you get to meet the post-production team, and that'll help you with your writing because you're seeing what's happening down the pipeline, and that's making you realize, oh, maybe I want to add things or not add things depending on what everybody else later on has to do.
Also, voice records are amazing because then you get to hear how the voice actors are embodying the character and becomes this like, oh, that's definitely something our character would say. Or, ooh, okay, the line I wrote then doesn't sound like it would come out of that VA's mouth. No, we're fixing that. There we go. That's the right amount of sass in there. Ugh.
Yeah, and voice actors are cool. They're very fun people. We love them. So you also get notes from executives that can pivot to change the story elements in the script, which Angela talked about. You're aware of changes and why they're being made. It's not just some phantom thing you find out 2 years later when your episode airs. And you get to know everybody on the show. It's a lot easier to write jokes when you're with everybody every week, as opposed to you see them once on a story summit and then you don't see them again for like a year or months or whatnot. And you get to understand the show better, you get to know the artist better. It's just better for everybody. And so staff writers room, essentially it's the same as a story summit. It's just you're there the entire time. So you're figuring out the entire arc of the season. You're figuring out the main points of each episode in the season. You get your beat sheet, get your outline, you get your drafts, you get your notes, you get your other drafts, you get more notes. We also sometimes get table reads, and that's not table reads with the voice artist. That's table reads with the other writers, the directors, the storyboard directors, and you're in a room and you're reading it out, and then you're pitching jokes, you're pitching ideas, you're finding out better ways to strengthen your script. You get more notes, you revise it, and then you're done. So as you can see, we'll talk about this later too, writing is rewriting. It's not like you write your golden baby and send it off and it's perfect. You are constantly rewriting everything the entire way through. So that leads to part 4, tips for working with your team. So here's how to make your scripts artist friendly. As we talked about earlier, aim for the shorter side of scripts. I worked on a show that will remain unnamed where it was a half-hour show and we would get 38 to 44-page scripts.
Woof.
On a half-hour show. Made us very sad, and big chunks of that got cut because there's no way you can do that. So if you're on a 22-minute show, especially if it's an action show, aim for 28 pages. If you're on an 11-minute show, aim for 13. I know that your show was 13.
Yeah, for the 2 of the 3 11-minute shows I've worked on, we stayed at 13 pages, and then for Rubble and Crew specifically, 12 pages. Why? Because there was also building and a lot of action sequences and that took up a lot more time. And so we had to make sure that the script was accommodating to that. So we do make sure that our scripts are lean and tight.
Yeah, and on Santiago, our 11 minutes were 13, and our scripts for Poly were 14, so shorter side. Also, like we talked about before, describe your fight scenes, but not a wall of text. 2 to 4 sentences is great, and you want to make sure that people know where they are, where they end up at, if there's a certain way that they fight, if there's something very specific for a specific story note, put that in the script. And then same with characters, props, and backgrounds. And a lot of times you'll get to talk with the art director or the storyboard director about this. But if there's a specific story point you have in your script where this character has to wear a blue hat or they have to have a jar that's this big, you can make that a note in the script. You can literally just put it in brackets, put note to design team, this needs to look like this. If you don't, they'll just design it however they want that they think looks good, and then later episodes will be like, wait, that would have been really helpful if we had set this up earlier. Mm-hmm. So just let them know if that's really important. You can bold important ideas, so if there's something they really need to know, just put it in bold. Like we said, descriptions, 2 to 4 sentences. And then finally, the words are a blueprint, okay? This is not set in stone. Things are going to change along the pipeline. Your story editor or your EP, this is not they will rewrite your script. This
your
will
baby
happen.
was not ugly when they rewrite it, by the way.
No.
Because remember, you are borrowing someone else's baby and then you're giving it back to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's okay to have things that are rewritten. That is normal. And that's the point of a story editor.
Yeah, it happens every single show, every single episode. You did not do anything wrong. This is just what happens. So we're just warning you ahead of time so that when all of you are professional writers and you write a script and you get it back and you're like, how come only this much of what I wrote is here? That's normal. Don't worry about it. So then budget questions. So these are things you don't necessarily have to ask this, but if you ask this of your EP, you're gonna look really smart. They're gonna be like, wow, this person really understands the industry. So, and it will help you out later on. So first off, how many characters can be on screen? You know, a lot of us want to work in television. Television budgets are a lot smaller than film budgets. So if you have an idea for a show, you probably don't want to have 50 people running down the street. It's the reason why when you watch certain shows, like shows set in New York, and you only see like 3 background characters, and they're the same ones, this is why. It's expensive.
You mean I can't have 10 crowd scenes in my half hour?
As someone who once revised on Loud House, please don't do that. That is, ugh, no. Also, how many characters can speak? There's a budget for how many times they can bring in the actor and how many roles they can cast, so maybe don't have 37 people talking.
I will say this. If we saw a character that only had 1 line in a script for the entire script, they were gone. They got added to the graveyard for that day. That's okay. They'll be back.
So then also, special costumes. Can they be permitted? How many? I had an episode of Santiago where it was the fruit festival. I wanted to give everybody costumes. They said that's expensive. My reply was, can Tomas wear a hat? Yes. So Tomas wears a hat. Nobody else looks fancy, but he has a pineapple hat. So that was our compromise. How many backgrounds can be used? What special effects can be used? Water is expensive. Lightning is expensive. Fire is expensive. Especially for CG, because you have to build all of that. Mm-hmm. They have it within their budget of how many characters, how many backgrounds they can actually build per episode. And if they went over on a previous episode, they might have lower for your episode. So it's just good to ask. What reuse assets can be used? People love reuse. If it already exists, just ask them, does this already exist? Do we already have this? Maybe this means instead of setting something on Mars, you set it on the moon. Or instead of in the garage, you set it at somebody's house because it's already been designed and it's already been built. And then special note on this, especially if you're on a season 1 show, they might not have the answers to these questions because nothing might exist yet. They might say, we don't know. So for example, on Scooby-Doo, we didn't have an art director yet. We didn't have a storyboard director when we first got started because writers are the first ones hired. But it's still good to ask because then the EP knows you're thinking about it and they can come back to you later and say, hey, now I have an answer for you. It's this. Or they can tell you something like, use your best discretion. And because you've been to our talk today, you now know what that best discretion is, which is probably less than 10. Just aim for less than that.
This is also real quick why it's good to break the silo and get to know other teams on the show, especially if you are a staff writer on the show. It can be really hard with freelance. I never got to meet any of the artists on my freelance shows. But when you are a staff writer in a show and you can go and you can talk to character designers, prop designers, background painters, storyboard artists, you can find out, one, what would you like to draw? What would you like something to be set in? And then you also find out like, oh man, design is underwater right now. Hey, can you just keep this like set at home? Sure, totally. I got a great, funny idea to be set at home. So it helps keep everyone also, sane, and it's showing that you're empathetic to the rest of your crew members too.
Empathy goes a long way, guys. So then our final part, keep going, keep growing. So here's how to generate ideas and improve your writing. So write scripts. Sounds obvious. We meet a lot of writers who are like, I love writing. Great, what have you written? Nothing. It's all in my mind. Actually write stuff. Like start writing today, like after LightBox Day. And then you're gonna rewrite it and rewrite it again. You're gonna rewrite it so many times, and that's fine. Also, read scripts. Read as many scripts as you can. We are in the golden age of the internet. If you type in your favorite show and then screenplay, you can probably find it. There's a lot of different script writing things out there. You were mentioning, was it Simply Scripts the other day?
Oh, we're not going to go back to it because that'd be too many slides ago. But on the slide for Coco, that script was downloaded from the scriptlab.com. You can go there, and they also have animation feature scripts as well.
Absolutely. And if you live here in LA, there's the Writers Guild Foundation Library. You can go for free. You can go to their website and look up their hours. They have so many scripts. They have every single episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Ew. So if you want to sit in their very comfortable leather chairs in front of the beautiful windows and just read every single Avatar script, you can. It's great, right? And then also, we're going to talk about this too. Build and join a community. We're in a community.
Hey.
We're in a community with some of the people here. Like, it's a wonderful opportunity to get better. Like, form your own writing group. If you're in school, form it with your classmates, friends, people you've met at Discord. You're going to talk about LightBox.
This is also where we say, look to your left, look to your right. It's not that some of you won't be here in 5 years. No, we're not that weird type of law school. No, rather, look to your left, look to your right. These are all the people in the animation community. These are folks who are obviously interested in writing for animation as well. These are folks who can also help give you feedback as well. And getting feedback means that you can also have accountability partners to actually finish writing the darn thing.
Yes, which we have, which is great. And then finally, take classes. We're a big fan of taking classes. Take screenwriting classes, take acting classes, take improv classes, storyboard classes. It's not like you get a job and then suddenly you know every single thing there is to know. Our executive producers take classes. You can always learn from other people and other experiences, so just learn as much as you can.
But Angela, I'm broke.
YouTube. YouTube is free. Mentorship, Rise Up Animation, Black and Animated, Asians in Animation, Latinx in Animation. Yay. There's a lot of free resources. Thank you. There's a lot of free resources out there. There's people here. You now know each other, help out each other with that.
Libraries.
The library is great.
And we'll give a shout out to some of our favorite podcasts as well in a few.
Yeah, and so I know you wanted to talk about this part.
Yeah, so how to generate ideas and improve your writing. So keep growing, watch with intention. There's a bunch of wonderful fun movies, TV shows out there. But when you're watching it, just go like Netflix and chill watching this stuff. No. Take out your notebook, write down, and we already went through the story map earlier. When you see characters go out and declare their goal, or hey, sometimes they have a whole literal song and dance about it. I just can't wait to be king. Literally singing about the goal, okay? So what does Simba want? Wants to be king. So we know that when we watch a show, or we watch a pilot episode, or we watch a movie, they're going to go through the beats of story, write down when those beats occur, and then if someone describes the goal, how is it described? Is it a question and answer? Maybe not. Sometimes it's a bold declaration, and then what do they physically do to achieve that goal? You would be able to map the story. Mm-hmm. And also keep track of their core relationships too. 2, keep a journal. And sometimes this can be hard. It can be, you can do a vocal journal. So if you want your phone to record things that you say to yourself, that is fine. You can write in a journal. That is great too. And it doesn't have to be writing an essay every day. A few lines about what you're observing. Go to a cafe. Watch people around you. Ooh, those folks are making cow eyes at each other. Ooh, that person looks like they're having a really bad day. What is their bad day about? I'm going to make it up right now on the spot. But it can be about how you're feeling, or it can be about a memory memory, your voice will start to come out from it. And then finally, make sure you pay attention to the trades. Some of the ones are really obvious, like Variety, Hollywood Reporter. Kids Screen. Kids Screen is a very important one because that shows who's moving where are they going to, what studios have acquired what, if there are any power players, where are they now working. It helps you keep track of stuff. Kids Screen is also having their annual summit in San Diego this year. So if you're from California, it will be a lot easier to get to than when they were out in Miami.
But final tips, build a portfolio, just like you would do for art. We recommend 2 to 4 original pilots, because if you write one and you hand it off to somebody and they say, this is great, do you have more? You always want your answer to be yes. And you don't want it to be, I can give you another script in a month. You want it to be, yes, I can send you another script today or tomorrow. So make sure you do that. Write for the type of job that you want. If you want to write for preschool, you can save the gory slasher for later.
Exception, though.
Exception. So I'll tell this very quick story. So anybody that knows me, I love horror. I love horror movies. Talk to me is great. But here's the thing. All of my scripts were for 6 to 12, 8 to 14. I wrote a horror comedy, and it got sent out, and I ended up getting hired by a preschool show and a bridge show. I got hired by a show where they're like, would you like to write for adorable puppies? Would you like to write for adorable dogs and like little pirates and whatnot? And unbeknownst to me, it was because all of my EPs loved horror. But here's the thing. They were well written, and that's why that worked. But if you know specifically that you want to write for really little kids, or if you know specifically that you want to write for older kids, aim for that, because you never know. It doesn't mean you won't necessarily get a job for other age groups or other genres, but you tend to get hired for the thing you actually have. So if you know that's what you want to do, just aim for that.
And I bet your first 5 pages and your last 5 pages were killer.
Yes. And then finally, keep writing and consuming stories. So it's like breathing. You have to inhale, which is reading and watching, in order to exhale, which is writing and drawing. And then we'll speed run through this so that we can get to the Q&A. But these are some podcasts that we really like. The ones at the top, Type and Tunes, Script Notes, and Paper Team, are all excellent screenwriting podcasts. Everybody at this top level here, they've written for animation, live action, or both. And then the bottom 3 are more like comedy review podcasts where they talk about news in the industry, television shows that are out, films that are out, and they just have a lot of really good information. And they really helped me out, specifically, which is why I wanted to show them to you.